Hello and welcome to From the Beale, the Burnley podcast. Slightly late coming in your ears, as I used to say on Chorley FM this week due to work and Christmas parties and various other things. So apologies for that, but hopefully this will give you something to listen to on your Saturday morning dog walk or as you're travelling down to Brighton. And hats off to anybody who is travelling down to Brighton a couple of Saturdays before Christmas to watch a Burnley side. Slightly depleted squad tonight, but I think it's probably the best three of the five, if we're being biased. Myself, Andrew Greaves, Justin Connolly and Paul Woodhouse. Not a comb or a hairbrush between us. And I think it's fair to say, Justin, we probably all had a lot more hair at the start of the season, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I've noticed on the podcasting software that we use to record this, on the video section of it, there's a little button you can press that says enhance your appearance, and I was tempted to switch it on. Well, I did press it. I expected it to give me, some long lustrous locks or something, but alas, it didn't make the slightest bit of difference. I still look exactly the same as I do with it turned off.
Yeah, exactly. You're just slightly less shiny. Yeah,
you've got to give it something to work with, I suppose.
Koleosho cornrows. That's what we perhaps all need. Some Koleosho cornrows. That'd be a strong look. Let's start with our young American, Italian, insert name of six other nations who Luca Koleosho can play for, because I think one of the things we didn't touch on, we touched on the fact that he was injured on the podcast earlier in the week, but we've now amazingly had the news that he's probably going to miss most of the season, which when you looked at the kind of when he picked up the injury, which was chasing the out ball from a corner, and then he kind of limped around a bit, and then he got a bit of treatment, then he came back on, he put his thumb up, and then he signalled he needed to come off, and he walked off, but it looks like a pretty bad knee injury for Luca Koleosho. And Woody, I think it's fair to say that a little bit of our hope disintegrated, didn't it, when Vincent Kompany in his pre-Brighton press conference revealed that it's probably going to be the end of the season at the earliest before Luca's back. It's a massive blow into it, losing him.
It is, isn't it? I mean, it didn't look like a season ender, like you mentioned. He was still trotting around and still trying to read it off, etc., etc. And then, like you say, it's pretty much the rest of the season. So hopefully it's better a little bit sooner than that. But it's going to be a huge blow, because as we saw primarily on Tuesday night, we aren't able to stretch defences quite the same. Or we become a little bit more compact. We haven't got the ability to get round people quite the same. So yeah, it's a blow.
Yeah, and just in pre-season when he signed, I think we were all kind of, well, he's one for the future. He's only 2 million. We were splashing the cash at upwards of 10 million, and this kid coming in from Espanyol, who'd only played about 130 minutes in La Liga, we were kind of thinking signing for the under-23s, but we've become so reliant on him, haven't we? And notched his first goal at the weekend against Sheffield United, and there was a kind of a real, I don't know, it looked like it had taken the wind out of the sails of Vincent Kompany on Thursday at his press conference.
Yeah, he did look really depressed about it, didn't he? He felt to me like he didn't really want to admit the truth of what had really transpired. But I don't know. I mean, I think the timing of it is awful for us and for Koleosho himself, obviously. I mean, up to this point, he hasn't exactly produced a lot at the end of those runs, as he's not got a massive number of assists, and he's only scored that was his first goal, wasn't it, the weekend? But it kind of feels like he has been our greatest threat, and building on the sort of more sort of stabilised performances that we've been putting together over the last month or so, it felt like he was just about to, push on and take it to the next level and start actually creating chances that were going to be put away. So it is a real blow, but sometimes these enforced changes that you have to make can lead you down a more creative path. You never know. It gives somebody else the opportunity, doesn't it, to sit in that left-hand side and show what they can do. Who would it be? Do you think who's going to be the replacement? Trezor, he seems to be sort of first in the queue behind him, doesn't he? But I'd like to think this might give Zaroury a chance to get his teeth into something.
Yeah, would it? I mean, as Justin mentioned, it does give somebody else a chance, and it's not an area where we are devoid of both bodies and talent.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of agree with Justin. I'd like to see Zaroury above any of the kind of shiny new toys that we brought in the summer, given a chance. I mean, we've kind of we've asked you to answer this question on a number of occasions, which is, have a stab, have a guess at what Vinny's going to do. It's kind of nigh and impossible, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What's Vinny going to do against Brighton?
We've seen a couple of changes out wide left, haven't we? We've seen, Ramsey out there, and that didn't seem to quite work out, especially when he gave that goal away, and we haven't really seen him figure because he got injured after that, didn't he? Odegaard, while he seems to have very similar pace and he's very similarly direct as Koleosho, he seems to have less ability to track back, and we have infinitely bigger gaps behind him, and defensively it's a little bit creakier. Then Trezor, whether Brun Larson gets stuck out there, whether it's his wrong foot, etc. With Goodmanson on the opposite side, I don't know. At least we've got options. At least we've got options. But I think I wouldn't mind Trezor coming in there, arguably, and maybe leaving Odegaard for the last 20.
It does feel like some of these players, I mean, obviously a lot has been made of Mike Trezor and our pursuit of Trezor and the fact he was, top player in the Belgian league last year with a lot of assists, kind of, record number of assists almost. You do kind of feel a bit like Koleosho, just in that these players we've not seen the best of because they're being thrown into games when we're 2-0 down or we're 3-0 down, 4-0 down sometimes, or they're starting a game where we end up getting smashed and then they drop out the side. We've seen with the consistency over the kind of every game since Palace that actually we're starting to build a bit of form, aren't we? We talked last week about Amdouni perhaps having his best game, Vitinho having his best game. It could be time for a Trezor who's been hit and miss, or a Ramsey who's been hit and miss, to, knowing that they've probably got a run of 3, 4, 5 games to get up to speed. I do wonder whether, some of the issue is that these players just aren't getting a proper run in a side, and we're only going to see the best of them the more games they play. Do you think that could be the case for a Trezor, perhaps?
I think so. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Like you say, a lot of these players, a lot of these wide players that haven't had a look in because those positions have been locked down by Koleosho, and on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, really Goodmanson and Brun Larson, a few other players have had a go there, haven't they? But it's been fairly consistent. They're coming into games when we're chasing the game. They're coming into games when we're already sometimes 2-3 goals behind. So it's quite difficult to make an impact when you do that, because the rest of the teams, their heads go down a little bit, don't they? And it just becomes difficult to have that impact. So that's got to be taken into consideration when you consider the form of these players who haven't quite managed to nail a place down in the side. And again, say this is an opportunity for one of them to do that. I don't think Trezor started a game yet, has he? Despite the fact that he came with such
started against Chelsea, I think, didn't he?
Did he? So he came with such a huge reputation, as a creator, and I think to be given a decent run in the side, to find some form, it is perhaps going to be to his benefit. At the moment, obviously, he's sort of switching between. He seems to be switching between Goodmanson and Brun Larson on that right hand side, depending on whether he thinks the opposition's better than us or not, doesn't he? I think that was why Brun Larson got the nod against Sheffield United, and then he played really well in that game, and then so he kept his place. He was a bit disappointing, I thought, at Wolves. So maybe Goodmanson comes back into the side for him. But yeah, that left hand side is an opportunity for one of these guys who's not had a decent amount of minutes and been able to form decent partnership with Charlie Taylor down that left hand side and to show what they can do. And it's an opportunity, isn't it? It might just work to our advantage in the end. You don't know. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and I guess Justin mentioned earlier that kind of sometimes these enforced changes perhaps leads to a bit more creative thinking. Arguably, we started to see Dwight McNeil when it was a necessity to bring him into that side. Probably his arrival within that side, if I remember things rightly, and there's been a few years since then. Sometimes it can be that, innit? That necessity. Trésor gets that full run, or Audebert gets the nod. And then all of a sudden, we're kind of, right, actually, we're in the swing of things. Because Trésor, weirdly, has been in and out of the match day squad. We talked midweek or the back end of last week about how we were chopping and changing the bench more than we were chopping and changing the team. We've mentioned relationships before, partnerships between fullbacks and wingers, etc. Brighton doesn't feel like the kind of place where, you almost want another Sheffield United, don't you, to bed in. How do you see kind of, this weekend's game against a side like Brighton going, on the back of that injury? We'll talk about the defence perhaps in a second, but it feels like another one of those where the magnifying glass is turned up quite high and there's going to be no room for error. Vincent's got to get his starting 11 correct from the off, hasn't he? I know that sounds quite stupid, but it is important, isn't it?
Pretty much. Yes, because Brighton are one of those weird sides, aren't they, that can kind of blow hot and blow cold. They can either blow you away by 6 or suddenly struggle to find, 1. But I've got a funny feeling that we'll give them the opportunity to play a little bit more than certain other sides will. And I think that could get quite scary, even though there is a few players out and a few players coming back, etc. for them. But I think, they'll also give us a little bit of time and space, even though they have quite an interesting press. But yeah, I think it's no mean coincidence that, like you both said, this recent run of consistency or making sure that we play a very similar side for the past 4 games, whatever, has bred a level of consistency and performance that we hadn't seen prior. So I think there's a lot to be said for that and seeing what levels of consistency we can get, because like you say, it's definitely an opportunity now for somebody else to step in and make that birth their own. And it would be very nice for somebody to come in and do that against Brighton straight away. But I think it's asking a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the one kind of glimmer of hope is that Sheffield United, who were so terrible against us, actually did manage to get a point at the Amex at Brighton just a few weeks ago. So they are a weird side. They've been brilliant in Europe, their first European campaign. They've not necessarily struggled in the league as much as some of those European teams. West Ham always seem to be really up and down when they have a European campaign. 8th in the table, packed with decent players. But I just wonder whether their style might suit us. Woody talked about the interesting press. I think our press is quite interesting as well. It will be, probably a newer test than perhaps some of the other games, which, Wolves was just a more traditional, you take your chances, you'd get something. If we'd have been a bit smart and a bit more aggressive and forward thinking in second half, we'd have got something. Brighton, I'm really looking forward to in a weird kind of, way, because it's probably the ultimate test of style versus, purpose to a certain extent, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they are a good side, aren't they? They are. I think if we, I was listening to Vincent Kompany talking about them on their on the press conference prior to this game, and you can see the level of respect he's got for what they've achieved. I think he said that he played his last ever Premier League game against them, and I think said that was about 4 years ago. And the progress that they've made between then and now has been just extraordinary, isn't it? They are, I think, certainly in terms of the way that the club is run, the sort of archetype of what we are trying to achieve: bring young players in and sell them, make and then they seem to have a bit of a conveyor belt of this sort of talent, don't they, that comes through, and they seem to maintain the strength of the squad even when they lose some of their key players, as they did in the summer. They're still doing quite well. I mean, they still have to do that with the manager, don't they? They lost Graham Potter, and it didn't seem to affect the trajectory that they were on. But like you say, they're 8th. They've got 25 points. They're about on par with where West Ham are. So I guess we can start to feel as if like we're approaching halfway through the season, that the table is not lying, is it? Clubs tend to end up at this stage of the season where they deserve to be. So it is going to be a big test for us. But we have met teams who were in that little group before, West Ham being one of them, and we know what happened in that game. So I'm not completely writing off our chances. I think it really depends on whether we make any of these silly mistakes and give the goals away. That's the one thing we've got to cut out, because I think I was trying to articulate this the other day. I think that we are approaching the halfway stage now, and we've only got 7 points. But I think if we started the season again from where we are now, we would pick up a lot more points than that, even in with the tough start that we had. And I expect us to pick up a lot more points than that in the second half of the season. So I know I just said that the table doesn't lie at this stage of the season, but I'm going to contradict myself and say there's one club that it is lying for, and that's us. I think we're a lot better than the position that we find ourselves in, and this is a real opportunity for us to show that. And we should go into this game with some confidence, because I know we keep saying it, but it does feel like things are improving, and improvement in this game would be getting at least a point, wouldn't it? I think.
I love that. Pretty wild for Friday night to say the table never lies and then call it out as a bullshitter. For Burnley,
all in the same section, yeah.
All in the same section. Absolutely incredible,
section,
Justin.
Yeah.
One change that we might see, Woody, is the return of a centre-back pairing of Ekdal and Bayer. Now, I know we were critical of O'Shea and his part in the Wolves goal midweek, and that came after probably, again, his best game against Sheffield United. Do you see Vincent bringing Bayer back into the team in place of O'Shea, as opposed to bringing him back in to say alongside O'Shea, and Ekdal drop back down to the bench? And B, do you think that represents possibly our best centre-back pairing, Ekdal and Bayer, and that, again, will be that one little step up in that back five that might help cut out some of these stupid errors?
Yeah. All things being equal, so long as he hasn't picked up any niggles and isn't feeling any reactions, our best centre-half pairing by an absolute distance is Ekdal Bayer. And I think everybody will pretty much agree on that, which means everybody will probably disagree with that. But yeah, those two, if that excites me, one 2 thumbs up moment for me this week, the potential of those two playing together, etc. As I hope he is fit, hasn't seen a reaction to playing. I know he took him off with 10 minutes to spare. Hopefully that was just to, protect him for this weekend, and he wasn't feeling a niggle. But we'll find out, won't we? We'll find out.
Yeah, cue a back two of Delquire and O'Shea down on the south coast. Such is Vincent's way. I mean, we kind of, we've built Ekdal up to be the kind of great defensive saviour, and his stock has risen, as we've said, because he's not been playing. But he kind of showed when he came on against Sheffield United, he's got that bit of class about him, and he's got a little bit, perhaps, slightly older head than perhaps Bayer has, and perhaps slightly calmer than O'Shea. He's kind of the best of that kind of old-fashioned defender, but still quite cultured. We saw last season when I can't remember who it was against, Luton it might have been. He strides forward and he puts a ball through for Brownhill to run onto, and Roberts finishes, and so there's a bit of something about Ekdal that we perhaps don't have in that back four when he's not in there.
Correct. Yeah, I think that is true. I think he's got a certain sort of serenity about him, as he goes about the pitch. He's very, very calm, and I think when you're knocking the ball around at the back in the way that we do from time to time, you need that sort of calmness. But yeah, I mean, you touched on it there as well. He also brings something to the offensive side of the game as well. And Bayer does this as well, doesn't he? They step out into the midfield, bring the ball forward, and get us on the front foot in a way that O'Shea and Alderkiel don't really do. Bayer and Ekdal both do that. Obviously, hopefully they don't do it at the same time in Brighton, but they do have that ability to switch the play and pick out. They've both got good distribution, haven't they, and can find a pass. So I agree with you. I agree with both of you that that's our best central defensive partnership. We're slightly worried about Alderkiel because he's not featured, has he, since he had quite a rough time of it in the before this nice little run we went on, and I thought he was the real deal. I thought he was going to shine this season. I'd like to see him get back into the fold, but at the moment, I'm with you that Ekdal and Bayer have got to start at Brighton. They've got to.
Yeah, I was going to say the FA Cup tie against Spurs might be that opportunity for Alderkiel, but given that was probably his worst game in a Burnley shirt, perhaps he might just be, saying, "Hang on a minute, boss, I might want to duck this." Friday night trip to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And just one last thing before we go, because we didn't want to kind of rumble on and on saying the same stuff like we seem to do every week on the back of a defeat, and looking forward to the next game. But one for our US listeners is that Mission to Burnley is going to be on Peacock soon, which I know a lot of American-based Clarets, US-based Clarets have been wondering whether a network out there would pick it up. Woody, from your point of view, I know you watch a bit of the kind of Burnley coverage, and we've got JJ Watt as our kind of fan ambassador and part owner out there. What kind of impact do you think a documentary about a little football club from the northwest of England is going to have on the Peacock network and across the kind of wider American sports mindset, maybe?
Well, everybody's got quite excited about Wrexham. Let's put it that way. Wrexham managed to do their little tour playing Man United. I know people who were marginally into football who may not go and watch a game definitely went to go and see Wrexham because of what's gone on there. Now, don't get me wrong, we nowhere near that level of celebrity, except, and I don't know how many people are crying out for another shitty football documentary, etc. But yeah, I don't know. Well, I may find out something this weekend as to whether anybody's excited. But some people will lap it up. But I don't think it'll be anywhere near the kind of PR push as Wrexham get, obviously, out of their efforts.
Gives people a chance to find out a little bit more about the club and the town and that sort of thing, doesn't it? So, anybody whose interest has been piqued by the involvement of JJ Watt and the fact that we do have American owners, and football is rising in popularity in the US, isn't it? It's attracting decent crowds these days, so the Premier League football is probably more on the radar than it ever has been before. So I don't know. It could just sit there and just offer that opportunity for people to really see what the town's about, and what the club's about. Maybe it'll resonate with them. I don't know. It can't hurt, can it?
That's a fair point. I think it could have got a bigger boost and a bigger buzz at the beginning of the season when we weren't languishing at the bottom of the table and we're an absolute sack of shit. But like you say, we'll see. I don't think it can necessarily be a negative. Hopefully, more people will watch it than we give it credit for.
Excellent. What a positive note to end on. We're not quite as big as Wrexham. There we go. Woody and Simon are at the MLS Cup final on Saturday, Columbus Crew versus Los Angeles. So enjoy that. We will be back on Monday with an episode of the debrief or the post-mortem, depending on whether it's a positive result or not. Until then, don't forget, follow us on social media at BO Podcast on Twitter and Facebook, and rate, review, share, and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen to your podcasts on. Until next time, thank you very much for listening. See you soon, and up the Clarets.